Okay, we are live. All right, I think we are ready to go. All right, everybody. Okay, again, if you see a halo around me, that's just Krishna's effulgence. Krishna's empowering all of us. Hold on a second. Get my guitar. It's an effulgence that you see. So, nothing unusual. Let's see if I can do something about it. No, it continues. Anyway, no sense in doing anything about it now. I'll take care of it later. It's a software thing. Green means autonomy or independence, so that's why my forehead is green. And yellow is creativity. The halo around me is the creative halo. All right, anyway, joking aside, we're going to chant the prayers to Lord Nrsingadev because we are praying for the welfare of the devotees in Ukraine and Russia, and in fact, devotees all over the world. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Anandakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Vilas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopagopada Sayam Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavanam ki jai. Maturanam ki jai. Jagatasami ki jai. Yamunamai ki jai. Shrimati Lasi Devi ki jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Budale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pajari Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschachate Jatarni. So we're going to continue with our study of the Sri Caitanya Caritamrta. We are continuing with text 178 in the 25th chapter of the Madhya Lila. The Madhya Lila deals with the residents of Varanasi being converted into Vaishnavas, which is quite unusual, because the residents of Varanasi are generally Mayavadis and personalists. And so Lord Chaitanya converted them all into Krishna consciousness, including the head Mayavadi Prakashananda Saraswati. So now we'll go on to the Caitanya Caritamrta. We still have about 100 more verses in this particular chapter to finish. And once we've finished this chapter, we go on to the Ansha Lila. Okay. So, Om Gana Timdanda Shah Gananjana Shlakya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge, while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. Okay, and if any of you see like a halo, that's just an effulgence. So on the screen. So we're going to go on to the Caitanya Caritamrta. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. So text 178 in this chapter, chapter 25 of the Madhya Lila of the Sri Caitanya Caritamrta by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, translated and commented on by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Ratre uti prabhu yade karila gamana pachela laila tabe bhakta pancha jana. After rising very early on the sixth day, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started to leave, and 5 devotees began to follow him. So he's leaving Varanasi at this particular point. Tapanam Isra Raghunatha Maharashtriya Brahmana Chandrasekhara Kirtaniya Paramananda Panchajana. These are the 5 devotees who were following him. These 5 devotees were Tapanam Mishra, Raghunatha, the Maharashtrian Brahmin, Chandrasekhara and Paramananda Kirtaniya. That means the supreme bliss of chanting Krishna's names. Sabe chahe Prabhu Sange Nilachalaya te Sabare Vidya Dila Prabhu Yatna Sahite. These five wanted to accompany Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Jagannath Puri, but the Lord attentively bade them for farewell. Whoops. Let me, hold on, let me get rid of this beeping that's occurring right now. This is a problem. Hold on a minute. Yeah, that's the way to get rid of it. All right. And then the phone, turn the phone to airplane mode. There we go. Yanre chapache aisa amare dekite ebe ami eka yamu jarikanda pate. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, if you want to see me, you may come later, but for some time being, I shall go alone through the Jharkhanda forest. Sanatane kahila tumiya vrindavana tumara dvivai tata kadiyache gamana. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised Sanatana Goswami to proceed toward Vrindavan, and he informed him that his two brothers had already gone there. Kanta karangiya mora kangala bhakta gana Vrindavanayale Tandera Kariha Palana. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Sanatana Goswami, all my devotees who go to Vrindavan are generally very poor. They each have nothing with them but a torn quilt and a small water pot. Therefore, Sanatana, you should give them shelter and maintain them. So in other words, in addition to Sanatana Goswami getting the instructions to Nanashastra Vichara Naikanipano, said Dharma Samstapako, which means perusing the revealed scriptures to come up with eternal religious principles, not details. Then he was given the order to uncover the holy places and build temples, and also now he's been given the order to take care of the devotees. Following in the footsteps of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we have constructed temples in both Vrindavan and Mayapur, Navadvip, just to give shelter to foreign devotees coming from Europe and America. Since the Hare Krishna movement started, many Europeans and Americans have been visiting Vrindavan, but they have not been properly received by any ashram or temple there. It is the purpose of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness to give them shelter and train them in devotional service. There are also many tourists eager to come to India to understand India's spiritual life, and the devotees in our temples, both in Vrindavana and Navadvip, should make arrangements to accommodate them as far as possible. Ito bali chalila prabhu sabalingya sabe vadila tata murchita hana. After saying this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced them all and began to proceed on his way, and they all fainted and fell down. Katakshane uti sabe duke gare haila Sanatana Goswami Vrindavane re chalila. After some time, all the devotees got up and returned to their homes, very much grief-stricken. Sanatana Goswami proceeded toward Vrindavana alone. Wow. Eta Rupa Goswami Abe Mathura Hila Dhruva Gate Tandre Subhuti Rai Mirila. When Rupa Goswami reached Mathura, he met Subhuti Rai on the banks of the Yamuna at a place called Dhruva Ghat. That's where Dhruva Maharaj executed his austerities. Purve Abe Subhuti Rai Chilagode Adhikari Husaina Khan Sayada Kare Tahara Chakari. Formerly, Subhuti Rai had been a very big landholder in Gaudadesh, Bengal. Sayyada Hussain Khan was then a servant of Subhuti Rai. It's an interesting story that's going to be told here. Digi ko daite tare unchi pa kaila chidra panaraya tare chabuka marila. Subhuti Roy put Hussein Khan in charge of digging a big lake, but once finding fault with him, he struck him with a whip. Pache Yabe Hussein Khan, Gori Raja Hila, Subhuti Rayera Tino, Bahubadaila. Later, Hussein Khan somehow or other was appointed Nawab, that means he's in charge, by the central Muslim government. As a matter of obligation, he increased the opulences of Subhuti Roy, because they had a friendly relationship, in spite of that one occasion of whipping. Phew, that's pretty heavy. Tara Street, Tara Hange, Deke Maranera Chine, Subhuti Rayera Marite, Kahe Rajasthane. Later, when the wife of Nawab Sayyidal Hussein Khan saw the whip marks on his body, she requested him to kill Subhuti Roy. In other words, she asked her husband, "Where did you get those whip marks from? Who whipped you?" And Hussein Khan said, "It was Subhuti Roy. He was in charge of me before." And that was something Subhuti Roy should not have done. Never hit someone. Rajakai Amara Posta Raya Haya Pita Tahare Marimuami Bailanahi Kata. Hussein Khan replied, "Subhuti Roy has maintained me very carefully. He was just like a father to me," he said. "Now you're asking me to kill him? This is not a very good proposal." Stri Kaye, that means the lady said, Jati Laha Yali Prane Na Maribe Rajakaye Jati Nile in Honahi Jibe. As a last alternative, the wife suggested that the Nawab take away Subhuti Roy's caste and turn him into a Muslim. But Hussein Khan replied that if he did this, Subhuti Roy would not live. Sri Maratik Chahe Raja Sangate Padila Koronyara Panitara Muke Deo Yaila. This became a perplexing problem for him because his wife kept requesting him to kill Subhuti Roy. Finally, the Nawab sprinkled a little water on Subhuti Roy's head from a pitcher that had been used by a Muslim. So this is interesting superstition. 500 years ago in India, the Hindus were so rigid and strict that if a Muslim would sprinkle a little water from his pitcher upon a Hindu, the Hindu would be immediately ostracized. Recently, in 1947, during the partition days, there was a big riot between Hindus and Muslims, especially in Bengal. The Hindus were forcibly made to eat, oh my God, cow's flesh, and consequently began crying, thinking they had become Muslims. Actually, the Muslims in India did not come from the country of the Muslims, but the Hindus instituted the custom that somehow or other, if one contacted a Muslim, he became a Muslim. Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami were born in a high Brahmin family, but because they accepted employment under the Muslim government, they were considered Muslims. Subhuti Roy was sprinkled with water from the pitcher of a Muslim, and consequently he was condemned to have become a Muslim. Later, Aurangzeb, the Muslim emperor, introduced a tax especially meant for Hindus. Being oppressed on the Hindu community, many low-caste Hindus preferred to become Muslims. In this way, the Muslim population increased. Later, the British government made it a policy to divide the Hindus and the Muslims, and thus they maintained ill feelings between them. The result was that India was divided into Pakistan and Hindustan. There's two things going on here. One is the superstition of the Hindus, the ritualistic superstition that even if you accepted employment from a Muslim, you became a Muslim. And also the superstition that if you got a little water sprinkled on you from a Muslim, from this water pot, you become a Muslim. This is the first thing. And, well, here's another thing, is that actually everyone in India originally, except for those people who came in from outside, were all Hindus, were, Christian conscious. Let's just say Christian conscious, but then let's say Hindus. So it just, if they go back in their family, if any of these people who were Muslims in India would just actually go back several generations, they would actually see, or more than several, they would actually see that they're actually in Hindu families. They're not actually Muslims. That's just something new that was a certain amount of generations ago. And then third of all, Prabhupada commented in other places that the Muslims and Hindus at a particular time were living very nicely with each other and respecting each other's religion. But India was subject to the British rule. When the British were leaving, they wanted to divide and conquer. And so they created a lot of animosity between the Muslims and Hindus. And finally, they had to divide India into Islamabad, which is Pakistan, and Hindustan. From early histories, it appears that the entire earth was under one culture, Vedic culture, but gradually, due to religious and cultural divisions, the rule fragmented into many subdivisions. Now the earth is divided into many countries, religions, and political parties. Despite these political and religious divisions, we advocate that everyone should unite again under one culture, Krishna consciousness. People should accept one God, Krishna, one scripture, the Bhagavad Gita, and one activity, devotional service to the Lord. Thus people may live happily upon this earth and combine to produce sufficient food. In such a society, there would be no question of scarcity, famine, or cultural or religious degradation. So-called caste systems and national divisions are artificial. According to our Vaishnava philosophy, these are all external bodily designations. The Krishna conscious movement is not based upon bodily designations. It is a transcendental movement on the platform of spiritual understanding. If the people of the world understood that the basic principle of life is spiritual identification, they would understand that the business of the spirit soul is to serve the Supreme Spirit, Krishna. As Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 15:7, Mamivangsa Jivaloke Jivabuddha Sanatana. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. All living entities in different life forms are sons of Krishna. Therefore, they are all meant to serve Krishna, the Supreme, original Supreme Father. If this philosophy is accepted, the failure of the United Nations to unite all nations will be sufficiently compensated all over the world by a great Krishna consciousness movement. Recently, we had talks with Christian leaders in Australia, including the Catholic Bishop of Melbourne, and everyone there was pleased with our philosophy of oneness and religious consciousness. Wow. Tabe Subodhi Rai se Chadma Panha Paranasya Ela Saba Vishiyajadiha. Taking the Nawab sprinkling water upon him as an opportunity, Subodhi Rai left his family and business affairs and went to Varanasi. It appears that Subodhi Rai was a big landholder and a responsible, respectable gentleman. He could not, however, avoid the social misconception that one becomes a Muslim when water is sprinkled on one's face from a Muslim's pitcher. Actually, he was planning to give up his material life and leave his family anyway. Hindu culture recommends 4 divisions: brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. Okay, we'll see that film later. Subodhi Rai was thinking of taking sannyas, and by the grace of Krishna, he received this opportunity. He therefore left his family, went to Varanasi. The science system of Varnashram Dharma is very scientific. If one is directed by the Varnashram institution, he will naturally think of retirement from family life at the end of his life. Therefore, sannyas is compulsory at the age of 50. The rest of the stories are really interesting. Prayaschitta puchilatino panditeragane. So in other words, he took this particular sprinkling of water from the Muslims' water pipe as an excuse just to head for the hills and basically take sannyas. Tanrakai tapta grita kanachada prane. When Subodhi Rai consulted the learned Brahmanas of Varanasi, asking them how his conversion to Islam could be counteracted, they advised him to drink hot ghee and give up his life. It's ridiculous. Keha kahe enahe apadosha haya shuniya rahila rai karya sangshaya. When Subodhi Rai consulted some other Brahmanas, they told him he had not committed a grievous fault, and that consequently he should not drink hot ghee and give up his life. As a result, Subodhi Rai was doubtful about what to do. Just needs to chant Hare Krishna. This is another instance of Hindu custom. One Brahmana would give some advice condoning a particular fault, another would give advice to the contrary. Typically, lawyers and physicians differ, giving one kind of instruction and then another. Due to the Brahmana's different opinions, Subhuti Roy became further perplexed. He did not know what to do or what not to do. Not know what to do nor what not to do. Tabayidadi Mahaprabhu Varanasi Haela Tanri Mili Rayapana Pritanda Kahila. In a state of perplexity, Subhuti Roy met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when the Lord was at Varanasi. Subhuti Roy explained his position and asked Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu what he should do. That's naturally you ask God, when in doubt, ask God. Prabhu Kai Ihan Haite Yaha Vrindavana Nirantarakara Krishna Nama Sankirtan. The Lord advised him, go to Vrindavan and chant the Hare Krishna mantra constantly. And Prabhupada said, this is a solution to all sinful activities. In this age of Kali, everyone is perplexed by so many inconveniences, social, political, and religious, and naturally no one is happy. Due to the contamination of this age, everyone has a very short life. There are many fools and rascals who advise people to adopt this way of life or that way of life, but real liberation from life's perplexity means preparation for the next life. Bhagavad Gita 2:13. In other words, that one takes another body and one gives up the body and takes another body, and the self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. As the embodied soul goes from one lifetime to another, Dehinam Sminyata, Dehe Komaram Yavanam Yatata, Deham Prapti, Namuyati. As the embodied soul passes from boyhood to from babyhood to youth to old age, similarly the soul passes to another body at the time of death. The self-realized soul does not bewildered by such a change. That's 2:13 in the Gita. One should be situated in his spiritual identity and return home back to Godhead. The simplest method for this is recommended herein by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One should constantly chant the holy names of the Lord, the Hare Krishna mantra. Following in the footsteps of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Krishna consciousness movement is recommending this process all over the world. We are saying, chant the Hare Krishna Maha mantra, be freed from all the complexities of life, and realize Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Engage in His devotional service and perfect your life so that you can return home back to Godhead, back to home, back to Godhead. Eka namabhase tumara papadosha rabe aranama layite Krishna charana paive. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu further advised Subhuti Roy, begin chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, and when your chanting is almost pure, all your sinful reactions will go away. After you chant perfectly, you will get shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna. And Prabhupada here talks about the offenses. The 10 kinds of offenses should be considered. In the beginning, when one is initiated into the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha mantra, there are naturally many offenses. Therefore, the devotee should very carefully try to avoid these offenses and chant purely. This does not mean that the Hare Krishna Maha mantra is sometimes pure and sometimes impure. Rather, the chanter is impure due to material contamination. He has to purify himself so that the holy names will be perfectly effective. Chanting the holy name of the Lord inoffensively will help one get immediate shelter at Krishna's lotus feet. This means that by chanting purely, one will be immediately situated on the transcendental platform. We should note, however, that according to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instructions, one should not wait to purify himself before chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. Whatever our condition may be, we should begin chanting immediately. That rhymes. By the power of the Hare Krishna mantra, we will gradually be relieved from all material contamination and will get shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna, the ultimate goal of life. Very nice purport. Hare Krishna nama laite, Krishna stane stiti, mahapatakera hoya e prayaschiti. When you are situated at the lotus feet of Krishna, no sinful reaction can touch you. This is the best solution to all sinful activity. Panadya Raya Vrindavanere Chalila Prayaga Yojatiya Naimi Sharanye Aila. Thus, receiving the order from Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu to go to Vrindavana, Subhuti Rai left Varanasi and went through Prayag, Ayodhya, and Naimisharanya toward Vrindavan. These are all holy places too, obviously. Kataka Divasarai Naimisharanya Rakila Prabhu Vrindavana Haite Prayaga Yaila. Subhuti Rai stayed for some time at Naimisharanya. During that time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Prayag after visiting Vrindavana. Mathura Shiarai Prabhu Varta Paila Prabhora Lagana Panamane Padaduka Haila. After reaching Mathura, Subhuti Rai received information of the Lord's itinerary. He became very unhappy because he was not able to contact the Lord. Shushka Kasta Hanirai Veche Mathura Te Panchachaya Pasahaya Eka Eka Bhoshate. Subhuti Rai would collect dry wood in the forest and take it to the city of Mathura to sell. For each load he would receive 5 or 6 pice. Very little, but at that time pice was worth more. Pice is like 100th of a rupee, and a rupee's practically worth nothing now anyway. Apane Urahiyeka Paisara Chana Chabaya Parapaisha Baniya Stane Rakena Dadiya. Earning his livelihood by selling dry wood, Subhuti Rai would live on only 1 pice's worth of fried chickpeas, and he would deposit whatever other pice he had with some merchant. Prabhupada explains, in those days, there was no banking system like the one now found in Western countries. If one had excess money, he would deposit it with some merchant, usually a grocer. That was the banking system. Subhuti Rai would deposit his extra money with a mercantile man and spend it when necessary. When one is in the renounced order, saving money is not recommended. However, if one saves money for the service of the Lord or Vaishnava, that is accepted. These are the dealings of Subhuti Rai, who was one of the confidential devotees of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Srila Rupa Goswami also followed this principle by spending 50% of his money in order to serve Krishna through Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. He gave 25% of his money to relatives and 25% he deposited in the custody of a merchant. These are the approved methods recommended in the Caitanya Caritamrta. Whether in the renounced order or in the Grahastha order, Vaishnava should follow these principles set forth by the previous acharyas. Very important. Dukhi Vaishnava Deki Tanri Karana Bhojana Gaudiya Aila Aile Dati Patataila Mardana. Subhuti Rai used to spend his savings to supply yogurt to Bengali Vaishnavas who came to Mathura. He also gave them cooked rice on oil massages. When he saw a poverty-stricken Vaishnava, he would use his money to feed him. Wow. He was practically eating nothing himself, just some chickpeas. And then he would use whatever extra money he had to serve the Vaishnavas. There is a special reference for the maintenance of Bengali Vaishnavas. Gaudiya Vaishnavas are Bengali Vaishnava. Most of the devotees of Lord Chaitanya at that time were Gaudiyas and Odiyas, inhabitants of Bengal and Orissa. There are still many hundreds of thousands of his followers in Bengal and Orissa. Bengalis are habituated to eating cooked rice as their staple food. When they went to Mathura in the north, they found that people generally ate chapatis or rotis made of wheat. The Bengalis could not digest this food because they were used to cooked rice. Therefore, as soon as Subhuti Rai saw a Bengali Vaishnava arriving in Mathura, he would try to supply him with cooked rice. Bengalis are also accustomed to taking a massage with mustard oil. In any case, Subhuti Rai wanted to serve the Vaishnavas according to their needs. Therefore, he would supply yogurt to ease the digestion of food eaten in Mathura, particularly the chapatis and rotis made with wheat. Serving the Vaishnavas, which is more important than serving Krishna directly. Rupa Goswami Haile, Hanri Baho Priti Kaila, Apanasange Lana Dwadasha, Vanadekaila. When Rupa Goswami arrived in Mathura, Subhuti Rai, out of love and affection for him, wanting to serve him in so many ways, he personally took Rupa Goswami to see all the 12 forests of Vrindavan. So Prabhupada explains, Srila Rupa Goswami had been a minister in the government of Hussain Shah, and Subhuti Rai was also known to Hussain Shah because as a boy the Shah had been Subhuti Rai's servant. We explained that before. It appears that Subhuti Rai was elderly, yet while he was living in Mathura, he showed Rupa Goswami the 12 forests of Vrindavana. Masa Mathura Rupa Goswami Rahila Vrindavane Shigura Chalayayala Sanatana Nusandhane. Rupa Goswami remained in Mathura and Vrindavan for 1 month in the association of Subhuti Rai. After that, he left Vrindavan to search for his elder brother Sanatana Goswami. Ganga Tira Pate Prabhu Payagere Ahela Tahashuni Dvivai Se Pate Chalila. When Rupa Goswami heard that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had gone to Prayag on the road along the banks of the Ganges, Rupa and his brother Anupama went that way to meet the Lord. Eta Sanatana Goswami Prayage Asya Mathuraila Sharana Raja Patadiya. After reaching Prayag, Sanatana Goswami, following the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, went to Vrindavan along the public road. This is especially significant because when Sanatana Goswami went from Bengal to Benares, due to the political situation, he did not go along the public road. After meeting Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Benares, however, he was ordered to proceed to Vrindavan along the public road leading to Mathura. In other words, he was advised not to fear for his political situation. Mathurate Subhuti Rai Tahara Milila Rupanupama Katha Sakali Kahila. When Sanatana Goswami met Subhuti Rai at Mathura, Subhuti Rai explained everything about his younger brothers Rupa Goswami and Anupama, because they had already left and joined Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Gangapate Dvibhai Rajapate Sanatana Taivatana Sanena Haila Milana. Since Sanatana Goswami went along the public road to Vrindavan and Rupa Goswami and Anupama went along the road along the Ganges banks, it was not possible for them to meet. Subhuti Rai Bahu Sneha Kari Sanatana Vyavahara Sneha Sanatana Nahi Mane. Subhuti Rai and Sanatana Goswami had known each other before accepting the renounced order. Therefore, Subhuti Rai showed much affection to Sanatana Goswami, but Sanatana Goswami hesitated to accept his sentiments and affections. Mahavirakta Sanatana Brahmane Vane Vane Prativrikshe Pratikunje Rahiratri Dene. Being very advanced in the renounced order, Sanatana Goswami used to wander from forest to forest, never taking shelter of any habitation built of stone. He used to live under trees or beneath bushes both day and night. Wow. Mathura Mahatmya Shastra Sangraha Kariya Mukta Tirtha Prakata Kaila Vanete Varambya. Srila Sanatana Goswami collected some books about archaeological excavations in Mathura, and wandering in the forest he sought to renovate all those holy places. That was one of his duties. E Mata Sanatana Vrindavane Te Rahila Rupa Goswami Dvibhai Kashite Aila. Sanatana Goswami remained in Vrindavan, and Rupa Goswami and Anupama returned to Varanasi. Maharashtriya Dvija Sekara Mishratapana Tina Jana Saharupa Karila Milana. When Rupa Goswami arrived at Varanasi, he met the Maharashtrian Brahmin Chandrasekhara and Tapan Mishra. Shekhara Ragahi Vasa Mishra Gare Viksha Mishra Mukhe Shune Sanatane Prabhura Siksha. While Rupa Goswami was staying in Varanasi, he resided at the house of Chandrasekhara and took prasadam at the house of Tapana Mishra. In this way, he heard of Sri Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's instruction to Sanatana Goswami of Varanasi. Kashite Prabhura Charitra Shuni Tinera Mukhe Sanyasira Kripa Shuni Hailabada Sukhe. While staying at Varanasi, Rupa Goswami heard of all Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's activities. When he heard of his deliverance of the Mayavadi sannyasis, he became very happy. Mahaprabhura Uparalokera Pranati Dekhiya Sukhi Haila Loka Mukhe Kirtana Shunya. When Rupa Goswami saw that all the people of Varanasi respected Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he became very happy. He even heard stories from the general populace. Dinadasha Rahi Rupa Gauriryatra Kaila Sanatana Rupera He Charitra Kahila. After staying in Varanasi for about 10 days, Rupa Goswami returned to Bengal. In this way, I have described the activities of Rupa and Sanatana. Eta Mahaprabhu Yadi Niladri Chalila Nirjana Vane Pote Yaite Mahasukha Poela. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was returning to Jagannath Puri, he passed through the solitary forest, and he received great pleasure in doing so. Sukhi Chalyase Prabhu Balabhadra Sange Purvavat Ragadi Sange Kaila Nama Range. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu happily returned to Jagannath Puri in the company of his servant Balabhadra Bhattacharya. As previously, the Lord performed many pleasing pastimes within the forest animals, with the forest animals. In other words, the deer and the elephants and the tigers, they were chatting and dancing and kissing each other by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's association. Ataranalatyase Bhattacharya Brahmane Patanya Bhoraila Nicha Bhakta Gane. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu arrived at a place known as Ataranala, near Jagannath Puri, he sent Balabhadra Bhattacharya to call for his devotees. Shunya Bhaktiragana Yena Punarapi Jila Dehe Pranadaila Yena Indriya Utila. Hearing news of the Lord's arrival from Balabhadra Bhattacharya, hordes of devotees became so happy that they seemed to be getting their lives back. It was as though their consciousness had returned to their bodies. Their senses also became agitated. Anande Vivala Bhaktagana Dhanna Hila Narendra Asya Prasabe Prabhure Milila. Being overwhelmed with great pleasure, all the devotees hastily went to see the Lord. They met him on the banks of the celebrated lake called Narendra Sarovara. Puri Varatira Prabhu Vandilena Chatana Donde Mahaprabhure Kaila Prema Alingana. When Paramanandapuri and Bharati met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord offered them his respectful obeisances due to their being godbrothers of his spiritual master. They both then embraced Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in love and affection. That's the etiquette. Damodara Sarupa Pandita Gadadhara Jagadananda Kashishvara Govinda Varkeshvara. Devotees like Swarup Damodar, Gadadhara, Pandit, Jagadananda, Kashishvara, Govinda, and Vakreshvara all came to meet the Lord. Kashi Mejra, Pradyuna Mejra, Pandita Damodara, Urirasa Takura Hara, Pandita Shankara. Kashi Mejra, Pradyuna Mejra, Damodar Pandit, Haridas Thakur, and Shankara Pandit also came there to meet the Lord. Arasava Bhakta Prabhura, Chanane Padila, Savalingya Prabhu, Prema Vishta Haila. All the other devotees also came and fell down at the Lord's lotus feet. In return, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced them all with great ecstatic love. Ananda samudre vase sabhavaktakane savala nakchale prabhu Jagannatha darashane. Thus they all merged in the ocean of transcendental bliss. Then the Lord and all his devotees proceeded toward the temple of Jagannath to see the deity. Jagannatha Deki Prabhu Prema Vishta Haila Bhakta Sangi Bahukshana Richigita Kaila. As soon as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw Lord Jagannath in the temple, he was immediately overwhelmed with love and affection. He chanted and danced with his devotees for a long time. Jagannatha Sevagani Mala Prasada Dila Tulasi Varichahasi Charanavandila. The priests immediately brought them flower garlands and prasadam. The temple's watchman, who was named Tulasi, also came and offered his obeisances to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu Ela Grame Kolahala Haila Sarvabhauma Ramananda Paninatha Milila. When the news spread that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had arrived at Jagannath Puri, devotees like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Ramananda Roy, and Paninatha Roy all came to meet him. Sabasange Lana Prabhu Mishra Vasa Aila Sarvabhauma Pandita Goshani Nimantrana Kaila. The Lord and all of his devotees then went to the residence of Kashi Mishra. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Pandit Goswami also invited the Lord to dine in their homes. One more verse. Prabhukai Mahaprasada Anaistane Savasangi Hanaji Karimu Bhojane. Accepting their invitation, the Lord asked them to bring all the prasadam there so that he could eat it with his devotees. Okay, and that's all we will do today. So today we did 178, quite a bit, to 236. And the Lord is back in Jagannath Puri in this particular narration. Okay. So now we will unmute you and allow you to ask your questions either by speaking or by raising your hand and then speaking, or by unmuting yourself and speaking. Okay, who has a question? Questions, now is your only opportunity. Okay, Madhya has a question.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Maharaj, Guru Maharaj. So earlier in text number 213, I think we were reading that this Subudhi Roy, when he met Sanatana Goswami, then he did not accept, he was hesitant to accept his services. So I don't understand why Sanatana Goswami was hesitant, although he was very advanced, the Subudhi as well, as I understand.
All right, I can explain. Because Subudhi Roy really wanted to take care of Sanatana Goswami, and his mood was pure. There was no problem with that. But Sanatana Goswami wanted to exhibit the topmost stage of renunciation. What is the topmost stage of renunciation? Or at least a higher stage of renunciation, where one is not dependent upon one particular individual. And so that is called the Madhukari stage. That's not the highest stage. Of course, the highest stage is Paramahansa, Parvajacharya Paramahansa. But he wanted to show, give an example of what a sannyasi should be like. In other words, a sannyasi should not become dependent upon one particular individual, no matter how advanced that particular individual is. Subudhi Roy was a pure devotee, obviously, because he was associated with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and following Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instructions and renounced from everything in this world, and also wanted just to serve the Vaishnavas. However, Sanatana Goswami did not want to be served by one particular individual, no matter how pure that individual was, because if that happens, then a sannyasi's detachment can be spoiled. That's why it's described that Sanatana Goswami would not even stay, if you read the verses after that, would not even stay in a house made of stone or any stone dwelling, and he would sleep under a different tree every night. So generally, one of the reasons sannyasis traveled was to help them in their detachment. Because as soon as you remain in one place for more than 2 or 3 nights, you become attached, and so anyone becomes attached. That's why that's the origin of the Chaturmasha fasting and austerities for a sannyasi, because during the Chaturmasha period, generally, that includes the rainy season. And during the rainy season, sannyasis stay in one place. And when they're in one place, there's a tendency to become very attached. And, there's so many attachments can arise that even threaten their own ashram standing, if you understand what I mean. So therefore, if they execute special austerities, especially in regard to the eating process, then they will not have the energy to become attached. So this is really why, because Sanatana Goswami wanted to show the behavior of an ideal sannyasi and maintaining himself by the Paravajakacharya, the Madhukari process, which is actually going from place to place and just taking a little bit from each place and not being dependent on a particular individual. When you're dependent on a particular individual, you can actually become very attached and dependent on that other individual, and that's not recommended for a sannyasi.
But Prabhupada, if I take the example of Prabhupada, he traveled all over the world and he stayed. So is he any less sannyasi?
No, Prabhupada never stayed in one place. He kept traveling. Prabhupada never stayed for a long period in any rich man's house. As soon as you stay like in a rich man's house or being taken care of by someone, you actually become controlled. I mean, maybe you don't become controlled if you're renounced. At the same time, it's not a good example for sannyasis. Sannyasis should actually be detached and be independent. If you just stay in one person's house, you become like their dog after a while, and that's not a sannyasi's business. So Prabhupada went to people's houses. I also go to people's houses and stay at people's houses, but I don't stay permanently in someone's house. I take care of myself. So that
Thank you,
helps
Maharaj.
with sannyasi's
Thank you.
renunciation. So another question, please accept my humble obeisance. How can we develop interest in serving Vaishnavas? Well, we become interested in serving Vaishnavas because we understand how dear they are to Krishna. And if we understand how dear they are to Krishna, then what happens when we understand how dear they are to Krishna? Then we appreciate them, and we also want to become dear to Krishna, and we understand the only way to become dear to Krishna is by serving them. How's that sound? Mahat Seva Mahur Vimuktes Tamo Dwaram Yoshitam Sangi Sangam. So that's the way you become dear to Krishna, is by serving the Vaishnavas. So whatever your motivation is, I serve the Vaishnavas because I appreciate them, not because I am thinking, in this way I'll trick Krishna. Okay, and Sudharma, you're unmuted. Do you have a question? If not, I guess not. Okay, I guess she unmuted herself by accident. Okay, all right. I will abide. Caitanya, you have a question. Or maybe you don't. You muted yourself again.
I do, Gurudev.
You do. Okay, Mr. Gopal, what's your question?
Please accept my obeisances. In the verses, there was some talk about Lord Chaitanya's etiquette towards the godbrothers of his spiritual master, and then, of course, the returning etiquette that they embraced him and in love and affection. So we see that it seems to be the common etiquette that the elder or at least senior Vaishnavas will show love and affection to the juniors.
Right.
If the junior doesn't first show respect, to the elder, is it still the responsibility of the elder to show love and affection to the junior
Yes.
so that he may develop respect?
Yes, we have to show love and affection even to the cat. Just like we have a cat in the temple. Cat's name is Gopal. Oh, no, no, I'm sorry, it's Tilak. So we have a cat in the temple.
I would.
I'm just teasing. We have a cat in the temple by the name of Tilak. And so whenever I'm at the temple, I go into the prasadam room and get myself some halva, which I don't eat since I can't. Okay, how about that? I can, but I don't. So I get myself some halva, and what do? I take a special effort and I show affection for the cat. So Vaishnava should be affectionate towards everybody, whether or not, and the cat sometimes does not offer obeisances to me. You know,
I'll talk to him.
sometimes the cat actually forgets the etiquette, even though I've gone out of my way to train him up in etiquette. Still, you know, out of ecstasy, more or less for the prasadam, the cat forgets. Okay, good question. So another question, final question is Gora Hari, your question?
Please accept my obeisances, O glorious Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah. So what's the question?
Yeah, my question is concerning the kirtans, dancing.
Yeah.
I understand that by people listening to the chant and listen to the holy name as is chanted, you know, people get some sort of benefits, right?
Yeah.
And what about the dancing?
Well,
What kind of from the
you get
dancing?
you get benefit from the dancing because you're dancing to glorify Krishna, and dancing because you're happy chanting Krishna's names. So you're engaging with the chanting. You're engaging your tongue in Krishna's service and your ears in Krishna's service, and with your dancing, you're engaging your body in Krishna's service. So the more you can engage in Krishna's service, and Krishna loves to see the devotees dance. I mean, it gives Krishna pleasure. See devotees dancing, not just mundane dancing like Bollywood or the cha-cha. but dancing to Krishna's name, Krishna loves it. I mean, just like an ordinary artist. Let's say if someone wrote some song like the Beatles, you know, something like the Beatles song, and if they see their people really getting into it, I mean, I've seen that in concerts, like in rock and roll concerts, where you get 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 people, that the artists, when they actually see people dancing to their music, it makes them very happy. Because it's like a reciprocation, a loving reciprocation. All right?
I understand because I come from a very dancing culture, you know.
Yeah, so dance for Krishna. But don't dance the cha-cha or the whatever other. I forget, what's the name of that Brazilian dance? I forget the name of that. There's one Brazilian dance that's very famous. And I forget. Anyway, it's not important because I never danced.
Like Zumba?
Zumba, yeah. Zumba, yeah. Yeah. So that's a lusty dance. So we are interested in loving dances, loving of Krishna. All right, so with that happiness in mind, tomorrow we're going to be giving our Sunday feast lecture, so it's going to be a little bit different. I'm not sure what we're going to do, but that's going to be in Nugaloka, which I'm going back to early tomorrow morning. Tomorrow, also for those of you who are in North America, we go to daylight savings time. Oh yeah, I should announce this. So for those of you in Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, etc., because in North America, we are setting the clocks ahead in the middle of the night tonight. That means the classes in Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, etc., and maybe Europe. I'm not sure of Europe's timing, but nobody here is online from Europe. So the classes will be an hour earlier your time. An hour earlier your time. Remember that. Because we're going to reach 5 o'clock. It'll be 5 o'clock my time, but 5 o'clock my time will be an hour earlier your time. Because right now, it is 6 o'clock in the evening my time. But 24 hours from now, it's going to be 7 o'clock. So that means your classes are going to be earlier, 1 hour earlier. The class I'm giving are going to be 1 hour earlier for New Zealand, Australia, Fiji. And when you go off daylight savings time, which is I think sometime in April, and you go off daylight savings time, then even earlier. Okay, but that's another issue. So, but tomorrow's class, for those in Australia, New Zealand, and Fiji, will be 1 hour earlier. Your time, not my time. My time is going to be daylight savings time. Okay. On that happy note, we'll see. And tomorrow's Akadashi too, here. All